Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Run Try Bike Tuesday Fireside chat here on Instagram Live. Today we have a very special guest, Cody Beals, who is a 4-time Ironman champ, 8-time 70.3 champ, who has a whole range of sponsors from Asics to Ventum to Varlo and Plush to Martins, and the list goes on. And we're going to talk to Cody a little bit about him being self-coached as well as the sport of triathlon in terms of acceptance of the LGBTQIA plus community and what he would like to see going forward. So it's going to be an awesome discussion. I'm going to invite him here, and so he should join us in a second. But make sure while you're watching this conversation, mark on the bottom or just click on the comments and type them in there, and we'll get those questions over to Cody and get him to answer them. So just with perfect timing too, here's Cody Beals. Thank you, Cody, for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm really excited about this. I've been racing in endurance sports for about 16 years now, and so obviously I'm well aware of who you are, but it was kind of cool to go back to your blog and read about you, as well as rereading the article that was written about you in 2020 in Triathlete magazine. So I'm pretty excited to have this conversation.
Me too, Jason.
So when did you start in triathlon, and why did you decide that triathlon was going to be the sport for you?
I don't know if I've still decided if it's the sport for me, I guess I grew up swimming a little bit, like dabbling in swimming, I'd say, recreational swim team, and then was skiing the whole time growing up, as Canadians do, and cycling as well. And my mom was a runner, so eventually people kind of clued me in that there's a sport that combines all three, and did my first triathlon when I was 16, and really didn't take it seriously, had no inclinations of going pro, continued to dabble in it for years, and then leaned really hard to triathlon after university. And Jason, it's hard to believe, but that was more than 10 years ago now, and this is my 10th pro season.
That is amazing. So 10 years as a pro. Tell us, why did you decide to go pro? What was it that led you to believe, if you're saying that you were not sure why you got into triathlon, what would make you want to go pro then?
I basically had to have my arm twisted. I was fortunate to have some people around me in the sport, some mentors I looked up to, who started to nudge me and say, you could maybe make a go of this. And I really scoffed at the idea. I had no idea people were earning a living doing this. It was unfathomable to me. So it was like this hard fork in my life plan at the time. I thought I'd go get a physics PhD and realized academia wasn't really for me. And so I just gave myself this summer to pursue triathlon, and the summer turned into a year, and now it's turned into 10. But I'm really thankful that I had those people to give me the push, because it's not something that I had the self-belief to just launch myself into.
So in that case, if you didn't know that, if you didn't have the self-belief to become a pro triathlete, what was it like when you won your first, both 70.3 and your first Ironman race then?
Utter disbelief. I think I was more surprised than anyone else. My first 70.3 win was my second pro season. It was at Eagleman in 2015. And I beat a couple guys who I'd looked up to for years. I think it was Jordan Rapp, who was second there. He's a guy who I'd studied on the Slow Twitch forums for years. And so it was a pretty big aha moment. It was really validating. Obviously, this can't be all about chasing wins, but after sinking, the better part of 5 years into this, it was nice to have that feedback that, okay, maybe I actually could make a go of this. And the first Ironman win, I really bided my time before taking a go at Ironman. I didn't do that until 2018 when I was 28, and won my first Ironman as well. And there's photos of me, and my jaw is just hanging open because I couldn't believe I'd won the race. I was doing shoulder checks nonstop the last 5 kilometers. Had Lionel Sanders breathing down my neck. So I couldn't even really enjoy the experience because it felt surreal, like I was watching it from someone else's perspective.
By the way, thanks for using 5 kilometers. So those of us in the U.S. can easily convert that to 3.1 miles.
Yeah, sorry. I've got to do my conversions for y'all.
No, don't worry about it. We'll make sure we get the math correct here. So if I'm not mistaken, if I did the math correctly on my own, you were 28 in 2018. That makes you going 32 going on 33 now, correct?
Just turned 33 in March, actually.
So in the sport of triathlon, is that putting you on the tail end of the older guy, shall we say? Or the way the world works today, Tom Brady's playing in the NFL at 40. Why not you?
This is a really good question, and I would have had a more definitive answer for you like 5 years ago. And I like this question because the narrative my entire career was like, oh, professional triathletes, at least over the Ironman distance, peak in their 30s. And so my attitude all my 20s was like, I can't even be in my peak yet if I wanted to. I've got lots of time, nothing but time. And since the pandemic, we've seen like a real demographic shift where even if we look at the top 10 at Kona, it used to be dominated by 30-somethings, even guys up to 40. Now, go look at the last Kona. At least on the men's side, it was like dominated by a new set of athletes who are a lot younger. So it's questioning this conventional wisdom. Maybe like most other sports, triathletes actually tend to peak at a bit of a younger age, and athletes peaking in their 30s was a consequence of a less mature sport. I'm not sure what I think, but I do still have the self-belief that I've got my best years ahead of me at 33. But I'm aware like the clock's ticking down, and I'm not squandering any more opportunities these days.
Love to hear it. So one of our favorite people, Stevie Lynn, just posted the question, where's Beans?
Oh, my cat. Yeah, she's already been fed, so she's like really schmarmy up until she gets fed, and then she just you won't hear from her again till tomorrow, I guess. No, actually, playtime around midnight, she gets pretty wired. She might make an appearance though.
Gotcha. So one of the things that our platform does is we love to talk about inclusivity in sport, from LGBTQIA plus to people of color to people with physical disabilities and challenges. And back in 2020, you did an interview with Triathlete magazine discussing you coming out as gay. And I wanted to touch on that because I think it's important that we talk about the inclusivity. And so one of the things I have written down here in terms of notes is what was it like to actually come out in an interview in a publication that big in the sport?
Oh man, it wasn't planned at all. So I really bided my time coming out in my personal life. I didn't come out until I was 25. And I think a misconception that a lot of people have is that coming out is like this discrete event in a queer person's life and you do it and it's over. But really it's a long series of coming outs that happen again and again. So the next, I guess, milestone on that journey was coming out in my professional life in the triathlon world. And this is never something I felt like I had to make a big fanfare about. I was always like, I'd staunchly tell you that, being gay is just a small part of my identity. And that was kind of detrimental, I think, that attitude. Like, your orientation and stuff is a big part of who anyone is, at least people who aren't asexual. And so that was not entirely healthy to just kind of brush that aside, I guess. So when I did come out to the triathlon world, it was just like totally off the cuff in an interview. And the interviewer was really perceptive. It was for TRS Triathlon at the time. And we were just chatting, and he kind of sussed out what was going on after a series of leading questions, and I just took the opportunity. And it was the day before my first World Championships.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit overwhelming, but like it was not a big deal, not at all. Like I think it was self-important to think that anyone would really care in this day and age.
Do you think that when you talk about downplaying it, right? Do you think that that's sort of a way of making it easier to come out, to be like, yeah, and kind of downplay it altogether, to kind of soften the blow and relieve some of the stress of having to have that conversation, not just for you,
I think
but for the community as a whole?
I think that's a pretty good take. Not necessarily true in my case. I think for me, it was more of a way of kicking the can down the road. It was like, I'd come out to myself maybe 5 years earlier-ish in my early 20s. And there were obviously, I knew what was going on way before then and just wasn't ready to admit it to myself. But it was like, I'll deal with this at a later date, and I just kind of kept brushing it aside and kicking the can down the road. And then abruptly, I was at a training camp in Texas, of all places, and I kind of had this epiphany over the course of a week that, like, damn, I'm 25. Like, if I live a long life, a quarter of my life has already gone by, and I've essentially shut relationships out of my life since, confusingly trying to date women in high school. So that was a pretty crushing feeling, but it prompted a really awesome thing in my life. And it set in motion a whole series of changes beyond just coming out. It was kind of just this cascade of getting my act together. And I can't stress enough like how harmful it is to be in the closet. And it's taken me 10 years now to really grasp like all the detrimental ways that impacted my life. So I'm super grateful that in this day and age, I live in a country where being out, at least as a cis white gay guy, is not really a big deal. And yeah, I do. I'm really aware of my privilege there because that's not the case still for a lot of people, the majority of people on Earth.
Yeah, and we appreciate you having this conversation on our platform. One of the things that we try to do is to let people know, no matter who they are or where they are, that on our platform, you're welcome. Come and talk to us, share your stories. We want to share because we believe that when we start sharing our stories and showing our vulnerabilities, that we actually inspire and motivate others because they'll say, hey, that person sounds like me or looks like me. And if they can do it, so can I. One of the things
Really
noticed,
appreciate that.
oh, thank you. One of the things I noticed, and I wrote this down, so pardon me while I read my notes instead of looking at you. In the article, it said that it starts with dealing with your personal demons ranging from disordered eating to exercise addiction to anxiety. And I think that there are a ton of people who can relate to that, including myself, because I did the disordered eating thing. I had the exercise addiction, and I deal with anxiety on a constant basis. And so I'd like to talk to you more about those things, but all three of them being separate. I know they all go together, but in terms of disordered eating, what were you facing? What were the challenges? How are you dealing with it today? How are you overcoming it today?
Yeah, it's tough to tease all those things apart because they were all kind of wrapped up in a pretty dark period of my life. But again, this is something I would have downplayed, I would say. And even the language I used, it was like, maybe a bit of a problem with food. But now looking back, it was an undiagnosed eating disorder that probably registered on a, clinically diagnosable scale. And it impacted pretty much every aspect of my life. So it was mostly just, I don't really want to get into the details too much because that's actually not even best practices to discuss eating disorders. I've since learned, it's better to keep it general so it doesn't fuel into other people's problematic behaviors. But essentially it was like really overly restrictive, orthorexic type behaviors around food, really strict ideas about what good foods were, what bad foods were, and coupled with, constant negative energy balance, a really crushingly high training load, like more hours than I train now as a full-time professional athlete, while I was also pursuing one of the most demanding university degrees in Canada. So it was way more than I could handle. And it led to like all sorts of physical and psychological problems, like insomnia. I think the anxiety was sort of a chicken or egg thing that was constantly getting exacerbated. And also just a lot of endocrine dysfunction as well, which has now since been kind of termed relative energy deficiency in sport. At the time, it was like, oh, this looks like female athlete triad, but guys are experiencing it too. And since then, there's been a lot of research and better language to describe that.
Yeah, and I can relate to that, like I said, because I was training 15 to 20 hours a week while trying to, work full-time jobs. And I mean, for lack of a better phrase, just not eating enough. And then at the end of the night, I'd find myself gorging on food because I was hungry, right? Meanwhile, trying to balance all of this stuff. How do you manage it today with being a professional triathlete? In regards to training less and, dealing with the food and the anxiety of, I have to imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, that there is some outside pressure to perform at the level that you perform at because you do have sponsors that, you are responsible to, let's say.
Yeah. So the food thing has been a really, really long journey. And I would say it's only really been in the last couple of years that I can truly say that I have a healthy relationship with food and eating and body image. And to be fair, it's not even really been profoundly tested by some kind of shock in my life, something really stressful, a major injury. So it took first working with some professionals. I thought I had everything figured out. I was managing every aspect of my triathlon career and life on my own and really kind of trying to be a lone wolf. I had to bring in a bunch of experts, coaches, a sports doctor, a dietitian. That was so helpful, I basically had to let these other people take over and start listening to their advice. And then it took years to unwind those problematic behaviors. Even once I was aware of what was problematic about it, it's still like those grooves get deeply worn in your brain. So it takes a long time to unwind that. And it was a pretty slow, arduous, deliberate process that was very nonlinear, So yeah, I'm happy with where I'm at now. Still, like if I'm not paying attention, I definitely undereat. It's like my appetite is 2 sizes too small for my activity level. So some people would just chalk it up to a high metabolism, but I think that's BS. I still kind of catch myself slipping back into those old patterns if I'm not careful.
Appreciate the answer. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamudi. I'm the founder and one of the co-owners of Run Try Bike. We are being joined by Cody Beals, who is a 4-time Ironman and 8-time 70.3 champion. we've been discussing Cody's life, leading up to this point with regards to an article that came out in 2020 in Triathlete magazine, and just going through and touching bases on where he is today with regards to his life and racing. If you do have questions for Cody, and there's a lot of people that are joining us right now and you're typing in comments, and we really appreciate that, but they fly by really fast. So if you don't mind hitting the question mark there on the bottom of the screen and typing the question in there, then I can get them to Cody, and we can have that conversation with him. One of the things in that article you referenced, Cody, is you referred to struggling to accept yourself, and we've touched base on this a little bit more, but I'd like you to elaborate on that in terms of, what was the struggle that you noticed, and how did you come to accepting yourself to where you are today? Because this was, like you mentioned, right before the World Championships in 2016, so 7 years ago.
Yeah, man, it was such a slow, long process. And in retrospect, I'm regretful and angry at myself because I was surrounded, ironically, in this environment that was nothing but accepting towards queer people. So, and I had arguably the easiest process of anyone in the gay community coming out as like a cis white gay dude. Like that's easy street compared to all kinds of other people in the queer community. But it still took me so damn long, and I feel like I missed out on so much. But one thing that really helped me accept myself was fiction. Like media, films, books, and that was ultimately what kind of made me realize, like, yeah, this is me, and the sooner I deal with this and do what needs to be done and come out to the people around me who I care about and love, the sooner I can start living a satisfying and fulfilled life. So once I kind of hit that point through exploring these things in fiction and media, it was the decision was made for me, basically.
Interesting. Do you remember any particular movie or book that you watched or read that still resonates with you today?
Oh, there are too many to list. I could go through my reading list, but yeah, there were a lot. It was like years of this, basically. And for a long time, it was really painful because I don't know why, but my attitude was like, yeah, this is me, but I can't have this, and that just hurts. And looking back, it was like I was so close. Why couldn't I just take the plunge? And once I did, it was easy. I think coming out gets built up into this challenging thing. And to be clear, like I want to reiterate, we talked about earlier, it is still really challenging for a lot of people. And I'm so privileged that my coming out was pretty easy, both in my personal life, family, friends, whatever, and to the triathlon world as well. And I think these days in the triathlon world, it's almost been like a career asset. Surprisingly, I think there are so many progressive companies that are keen to align with queer people, and maybe some of it's rainbow washing. I don't know too much about. I wouldn't point fingers or anything like that. I think a lot of it is genuinely motivated, and so that's been really positive. But for years during my career, I was like really reticent to ever align with being gay as a triathlete. Not because I was ashamed or anything. I was past that after 10 damn years of wrestling with it. It was more like, no, I want to be known for everything else, and this is only just a small part of me, and I don't want to be known as the gay triathlete. And I also feel squicky about leveraging this for, sponsorship or business gain or something like that. And it's only been like really the last few years where I'm willing to do discussions like this that kind of center on that aspect of me. And it's partly because, like you alluded to earlier, I think I've learned this visibility is actually impactful. So what hit the hardest for me was that every time like I gave the barest hint of my sexuality, like just posting, like a photo with my partner or something like that, I'd get some really poignant messages. And a couple of them were from, the ones that hit the hardest were from parents of queer kids. And they told me that like it made a difference and made their kids feel more welcome in the sport. And then I almost felt a sense of duty, even though it's kind of hard to talk like this and to, express something that I'd rather just keep private. I felt like a sense of obligation and responsibility because, yeah, it might be a little uncomfy for me, but it's like the easiest way I can give back, I guess, in some very small, modest way.
That's awesome. And, oftentimes we see people posting, like I tell my story because if I can impact just one person, then it's worth it to me. And that's essentially what you just said in that scenario with regards to getting messages from parents, right? And so,
oh man, after that made me remember, after I won Lake Placid last year, the next morning at the awards, and to couch this, like after an Ironman, you're a bit of an emotional train wreck anyways, at least I am. But the parent of a trans kid
came up to me, and I could tell she was really emotional, and she just kind of expressed what I was saying, that it was impactful for her kid and their process, and we both just started to bawl. And it was like, it was embarrassing to be in front of all these people just like inexplicably crying, but that made it worth it, I guess, you know?
Yeah,
If I just
for
helped
sure.
like her and her kid, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, it's hard to show vulnerability, right? But when you do and you find that the person, across from you is accepting of it, it strengthens that resolve to then have that conversation again, the next time it comes around. I mean, one of the things I've told people about when I started this business was I have family. I'm Puerto Rican, and a lot of my family at the time was like, we don't do that stuff. And I'm like, who's this we shit? I'm doing it right now. I'm running, 100 miles, racing Ironman. Like, we got to stop putting ourselves in this box and be like,
Yeah.
just because you're Puerto Rican from New York City doesn't mean you don't run in the woods, right? And so, the more we talk about it, the more we showcase, the more we can help other people out as well.
Let's talk about like representation in triathlon, because one thing I've noticed about triathlon is that it's maybe this is changing, but it's a pretty homogeneous group of people, So it tends to be a lot of affluent white people, and I think that's changing slowly but surely. But like, do you feel like your racial background's well represented in the community?
I haven't raced Ironman or triathlon in about 5 or 6 years. I'm ultra running today, but it's really not much different in terms of representation at the starting line, in all honesty, from what I see, right? Now,
Yeah.
skin tone for Hispanics like myself doesn't necessarily show you who that other person is, right? Like, I there's no tattoo that says this guy is Puerto Rican that I wear out there. So it's hard to tell at the starting line. But, I used to say, like, when I would see people that look like my family, my aunts, uncles, and cousins, was when I raced in San Juan at the 70.3, right? Clearly on the island, you would see that. So it's changing. I just don't, I think we all want it to happen overnight, and that's just not possible, right? We have to get the word out. We have to talk to people. Platforms like ours have to have people from all backgrounds on here talking and having conversations so that we can then spread the word and hope that it multiplies on down the road. So I do see Hispanic, Latin American athletes. I don't know if they're specifically Puerto Rican, but you definitely start to see some more and more Hispanics out there. We're doing a special coverage of Brooke Gowdy, who is an African American mountain biker. And she's going to be racing at Leadville this year. And that's, she's one of the founders of Black Girls Do Ride. And again, it's not something that you see constantly and at every starting line. And so we're hoping to get her story out there more and more and more so that people can see her and say, hey, if she can do it, so can I as well. So I do see there's some slow changes. I just don't know that it's as rapid as everybody wants. But like anything else in life, right, the more we work at it, and the harder we work at it, then the overnight success happens, right?
Yeah, I think conversations like this are impactful, just to, remind people that despite triathlon looking or ultra running or cycling or all these related sports, it can look like pretty intimidating spaces, I think, for a lot of people. It looks like a very, very small subset of society, but by and large, my experience with at least triathletes, super welcoming, warm, open people, I think the stereotype of like snobism and elitism doesn't really exist in my experience,
And I would say in ultra running, it doesn't exist there either. We see people all the time. I'll give you a perfect story. I raced the Canyons 100 about a month ago, and long story short, I was laying on the floor of the trail, throwing up, and a female ran past me, and a physically challenged athlete was with her, and they both stopped to ask me, hey, can I help you, right? And it's like, man, I'm laying on the ground here. I'm ready to call it a day. I'm done, and they were like, we'll stay with you. We'll stay with you. And it just kind of showed that community, right? Like different, here you have a Puerto Rican male, a female, and a physically challenged athlete all talking all at the same time. And it was just a moment where I thought to myself, this is exactly what Run, Try, Bike is. So thank you, but no, you guys keep racing. I'm going back to the aid station to call it a day.
We just got a great comment that I think is really true. Kim673 said socioeconomic status has so much to do with accessibility to the sport. Yeah, thanks for that. I've thought so much about this. Like, I love triathlon to death. It's enabled so much wonderful personal transformation in my life. However, I think a lot about like how few people have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe ultra running, which you're into right now, is a little more accessible because other than the sky high entry fees, all you really need is a pair of shoes. But triathlon undeniably has so many financial barriers to entry, and it kills me. And I think like one point to make is that yes, it's you need to be in a community with infrastructure. You know, maybe you need to have parents that drive you to swim team as a kid if you're getting into it at a young age. But like, I think adult triathletes build the sport up into being like way more expensive than it needs to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's this idea that you have to have like all the gear, you have to have all the recovery tech and treatments,
Yep.
you have to have the look. It's like, you really don't need all that. I did my first triathlon on a steel road bike I borrowed from my dad wearing a swimsuit, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like Ironman, for better or worse, can really I think scare a lot of people away. And I've thought a lot too about like how to tackle those socioeconomic barriers to entry in the sport. And frankly, I still don't have good answers other than trying to, you know, recycle my gear as much as possible.
Yeah. You know, I know we're doing this on Instagram Live, and, you know, we also have, you know, platforms with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. But I think a lot of it comes down to social media, and we only see the best snapshots of things, right? So the classic bike pose, the classic picture pose, and people start to think to themselves, well, look at that person with that Cervelo or that, you know, Ventum or that bike. But what they don't know is maybe that bike was either handed down, it's 10 years. Like the first bike I bought was $500, right? I bought a used bike, $500 for my first triathlon, and I use that. So what we're getting this snapshot, and we're putting that, you know, thought process into what we're seeing, and all of a sudden it's like I have to have the $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 bike. I need to have, you know, 10 pairs of shoes, and I need to have all of these things. And it's like, no, you can probably just get away with starting out with as cheaply as you can possibly do, just to find out if you even enjoy the sport. What if you don't like it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of people have dropped 20K and realized maybe it's not for them. But this is definitely a source of tension personally within my career because, you know, my own values skew pretty minimalist and anti-consumption. But ultimately, most of the opportunities in the sport revolve around promoting brands and promoting consumption and, you know, being one of those guys showing off the $20,000 triathlon gear setup. So I'm super grateful on one hand for the companies I work with and the sponsorship opportunities, but also like hear me with this message that like you don't need all this stuff to get into the sport as well. It's only really valuable if you're eking out those last performance gains, if that's something that matters to you as a performance-oriented athlete.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? So, you know, for lack of a better phrase, we're hobby joggers, right? So if I finish 347th in an Ironman or I finish 344th in an Ironman, is it worth a $10,000 spend on a bike? Like, I mean, we're not finishing in an area where we're going to go pro like you did a number of years ago. So you really have to figure out, what does the sport mean to you in terms of health, and then whether or not you really do want to go about spending so much money on excuse me, you know, and I know I've been doing this for 16 years and I've got a business built around it, but it's a hobby, right? Like this is a hobby for lack of a better phrase, unless you're a professional getting paid for it.
We've got a lot of people too in the comments pointing out, talking about local racing. And that's so important. Like I'll say again and again, there's such a mad rush and preoccupation towards Ironman in the sport. I think many people would be better served in terms of development, enjoyment, fulfillment, not to mention finances if they stuck local. And I'm so grateful for the local racing opportunities here in Ontario. Like a whole bunch of us, including me, Jackson Laundrie, Lionel Sanders, Taylor Reed, Tamara Jewett, we came up racing locally here in Ontario. And that scene is so important, but it dies if we don't support it.
100%.
So it's a little bit hypocritical of me because I earn my living doing Ironman races now, but the local racing is how I got my start, and I think it's still like the lifeblood of the triathlon community. And local independent races are so important.
And I think it's important that message gets out there too, Cody, because, you know, we're looking at things and we're going to say to ourselves, well, the sport is so expensive, you know, and I'm flying to Chattanooga, Tennessee to do Ironman Chattanooga, or the 70.3 that just happened, or I'm flying to Tempe. If you live in a town that has a local sport, go do it. It'll save you money. It'll help you get better at the sport because you're not traveling and spending money on that. And you can, again, figure out if this sport really is for you. And that goes for ultra running too, right? Like, you can travel to all parts of the country and the world and spend a fortune to run in the woods when you might have woods right near your house.
Yeah.
Make life easier
Good
for
point.
you.
I did a lot. I drove to 4 races in a row last year, and I settled on this race plan when I was marooned at the Dallas airport overnight, having missed a connection. And I resolved to drive to all these races, and I've never enjoyed triathlon more. Felt like that was a master of my own destiny rather than waiting in security lines and flying and stuff. So yeah, racing local when possible, so much more chill.
My name is Jason Bahamani. I'm the founder and one of the owners of Run Try Bike. We're being joined by Cody Beals. We've had a fantastic discussion. I know a lot of you have been putting comments in on the screen, and they fly by really fast, so I apologize if we haven't been able to get to them all. But Cody, we do have a handful of questions that come up. One of them is from Stevie, and we'll touch base on that one towards the end of our conversation. But we have one from ND Sharp 1 that says, at the end of this year, what would a successful season look like for you?
I think that's Matt Sharp. That's my buddy Matt, my G-Dog Racing teammate. Big fan of Matt's. Matt, you're calling me out because I don't have a great season plan right now. You're catching me in the middle of a hard pivot where the fork was, so I just did my first 2 races. If I'd earned great PTO points and was in the hunt for the Collins Cup, I'd say finish the season off at the PTO Collins Cup, jack my ranking up as high as possible, get back inside the top 20. The first 2 races didn't deliver, so now I'm pivoting, and I think I'm going to be hitting a series of Ironmans over the summer. And I'm no longer really defining my career success in terms of like boxes to tick. I definitely have some process goals, but I'm very, very sparse on the outcome goals these days. So I'm not going to tell you I'll be fulfilled and happy at the end of the year if I win my 5th Ironman or something, because I don't know, after a couple wins, like that's not what can be motivating you day in, day out, I guess. And I don't think that comes as any surprise to Matt. He's a pretty thoughtful guy.
Well, Matt just said I got to put you on the spot, so yeah, I guess he did so. We have a vote here from Gen 391 that says Ironman Maryland.
Heck yeah. So yeah, that's definitely on the plan.
That's cool. I did that race a few years ago, and it's a fun race to do. She also has a question. How do you keep balance in your life? What do you enjoy doing outside of endurance sports besides being Bean Servant, of course?
Yeah, Bean Servant. Yeah, that's my cat. Man, there's so many bullshit answers to this question. I think triathlon I hear so much BS about this balance. My life is so inherently unbalanced right now. It is so self-absorbed. I'm like a toddler. I spend most of my time and energy training, feeding, sleeping. So, yeah, I'm not going to feed you some line about balance. However, I have gone through phases of my triathlon existence over the last 10 years where I've been like married to the sport, like all in, especially before this relationship now that I've been in for 8 years. There were times where like triathlon was all I had going for me. And that was unhealthy. That was so unhealthy. Not to mention, if things had really gone belly up at that point, I think my mental health would have taken such a dive if all I had was taken away from me. So it's like, it's tough. Like it's so imbalanced, but I do have to cultivate some other things going on in my life. And how do I do that? Well, I'm a lot more respectful of downtime these days. I really try and carve out some weeks of the year, not to mention some hours of the day to unplug from triathlon. I've got some social circles in my life that have absolutely nothing to do with triathlon, which is wonderful. I love triathletes, but sometimes can't be around them all the time. And my partner is a source of forced balance in my life. I would probably be triathlon 24/7 at home if it weren't for his influence sometimes, and our cats. They're both good demonstrators of how to switch off, because it is a career that like I don't hang out my coat and hat and go home from the office at the end of the day.
Right.
Every single decision I make impacts my ability to perform, whether I'm going to stay up an extra hour to watch some TV and cuddle, whether I'm going to eat this or that. Every single decision can impact how I'm racing and how I'm earning money.
Love it. So downtime, what is the first thing you're picking up? Are you picking up a book? Are you watching a TV show? Or are you watching a movie then?
So we just canceled our Netflix because it was barely getting used. I read a lot. So I have got my e-reader. I've got like hundreds of books on there. I've gotten rid of almost all my physical books these days. I just love being able to bring all these books with me wherever I travel in a little device. So yeah, I'm a pretty voracious reader. That's my main source of entertainment. And just stage right here, there's my piano, which is collecting dust, which has been on my to-do list to start playing again. But I'm in this catch-22 where like it's pretty out of tune, but I don't feel like I feel like I need to start playing it again to deserve tuning it, but I'm not going to play it until I tune it. So I just need to like commit, get it tuned, start playing again.
This went by really fast, so I didn't catch who wrote it, but plans post triathlon. What do you want to do when the triathlon career is over and you're hanging up the run shoes?
I don't have a good answer for that question. I really don't. I get that question every single interview now as a 33-year-old triathlete. And I guess what I want to be able to do is have a year of breathing room, of blank space in my life. And maybe it's going to be less. Maybe I'll get bored after that. I don't plan to just twiddle my thumbs, but like the pace of my life in my triathlon career has felt so frantic for the last 10 years that I'm a little out of touch with, I think, what would really light my fire post-triathlon career. So, you know, I'm setting up my life in such a way that when I'm ready to step away from the sport, whether it's 3 more years or 5 or whatever, I'll be able to just hit pause and reflect a little bit. There's some things I think I want to do. I really want to build a house after having renovated the heck out of this 1890s house. I think I've got one more big reno in me. And I want to write a book as well, fiction for sure. I don't have any pretense of trying to have an interesting enough life to write an autobiography or anything.
I got to tell you, this has been one of the best interviews because almost half the questions have been, I don't have a really good answer for that, which means that you're going to be telling the truth instead of coming up with a story for one. Oh, did we lose Cody here for a second? So there is a question on here from Akim673. Are there donation programs for sports gear that you could share with us? There are some out there. We'll try to get them posted in the notes for this show for you. A new one just came about recently that I saw, and I will have to search for it before I can give it to you, but I'm sure it's out there. Looks like we lost Cody, but I'm going to try to get him back because we have to go to our rapid fire questions with regards to food, and one of them will be what Stevie Lynn asked about. Most of our rapid fire questions involve talking about, you know, different foods and thoughts on them. So we touch on the, shall we say, controversial topics when it comes to food with regards to that. If you do have any questions for Cody, we're trying to get him back on now. Please type them into the little question mark section over there so that we can get them to him. We're going to try to wrap this up as soon as he comes back. Hopefully he is able to get back. But thank you all for joining us. If you did leave us a comment, apologize for not getting to it if we didn't, but you guys have had some really good commentary for him. Yes, Stevie, the hard-hitting questions, that's right. By the way, I know you're still on my team, and tell Chance we said hello. But hopefully we'll get Cody back here in a moment. A lot of the conversation, you know, was about coming out in professional triathlon. So if you missed that answer, please check out the video when we post it and watch it from the beginning. We'll also have this shared to our YouTube channel in a couple of days, and in about 3 to 4 weeks when my co-owner Om Gandhi is back from Nepal. He's in the process of doing the Everest Ultra out there. He'll have the podcast up and running, so you can catch it there. All of our other Instagram Live interviews are on our YouTube channel and on our website, which is runtrimag.com. You can check that out and go to the podcast, which you'll get the audio version, or Fireside chat component on the menu bar, and you'll be able to get all of the YouTube videos of our conversations. And I believe this is our 58th, so we're a little bit over a year. We're having a hard time getting Cody back. Unfortunately, he may have had an issue with his connection. So I am going to try one more time to get him on here in a minute. But if he doesn't, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. It's been wonderful. Every Tuesday, we have a Fireside chat, Instagram Live. if you have somebody that you think we should talk to, they do not have to be an elite champion. We love the ordinary athlete. Oh, here's Cody. He's just asked to join, so he'll be back here. But we love the ordinary athlete doing extraordinary things. And we believe that all stories matter and all stories inspire. So make sure you send over that person for us to reach out to interview. Cody, thanks for coming back.
I'm back. Sorry. Technical difficulties. My phone overheated. That's the first.
This is the beauty of doing a live interview show is like none of this stuff is scripted. This stuff happens. I held down the fort as best I could.
We only lost like 10 viewers, so
yeah,
you did great.
Not bad. So I don't want to keep you too long. You're on the eastern side of North America, and I'm on the west side, so it's still perfectly beautiful and daylight out here for me. But I want to get this wrapped up for you. We do have some rapid fire questions that are controversial food topics, which are always my favorites.
Okay, hit me.
So this one's from Stevie, and she asks in a much nicer way than the way I would phrase it. So she said, it's Pizza Friday. What toppings are you putting on your pizza?
Oh, like 4 different kinds of cheese. I'm like mostly plant-based, but plant-based cheese sucks. So yeah, like
it's terrible.
Lots of cheese.
I'm plant-based too, and plant-based cheese is terrible. So
yep.
Here's the way I would have asked the question, and keep in mind that I am from New York, so your answer will determine whether or not we continue to be friends. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Oh yeah. I feel qualified to answer this. Hold on. I'm fully 50% Italian on my mom's side, so I have some authority. I speak with some authority about pizza, and I think pineapple is acceptable, even if it's not a conventional New York or Italian topping. You disagree? Okay.
I totally disagree. Would your mom say yes to that? There's no way.
Oh yeah, she raised me making Hawaiian pizzas at home, so yeah, she's got my back.
Candy corn is candy corn a real?
Absolutely not. I love eating all kinds of different candy on the trainer. Candy corn is cursed. That was like the first thing I tried when we were like going through the Halloween haul as a kid. Disgusting.
I love the fact that I didn't even get my description out, which
kind
of sways people.
Nope.
Because it's candle wax coated in sugar. That's what it is. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
I like these hard-hitting questions. This is the stuff that matters in triathlon.
Exactly. Licorice. Are you a licorice guy?
Yeah. It's been an acquired taste. No as a kid, yeah as an adult.
Are you going to go the red side, or are you going to go the black side for?
Either. All the above. My training partner Jackson gives me the black licorice jelly beans that he doesn't like, so I'm not picky anymore. My mom just chimed in and said, because I was a picky eater. It's true. Yeah, I've gotten over that.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for joining us. I do have to ask you to type in the comments whether or not you really believe pineapple on pizza is an acceptable topping. Red velvet cake. Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake with red food dye?
Not real.
Yes.
Cake. Not my first choice.
No, it's chocolate cake. Like everybody's like, oh, I love this red velvet.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so you like chocolate cake?
Yeah, if we're gonna do bastardized chocolate cakes, give me Black Forest.
Exactly. What's your favorite cake? Since you're a cake guy, if you're already talking about Black Forest.
Can we stray into pies?
Hold on. Mom said not my first choice of topping. Yes.
Okay, whatever. We'll talk later. Okay, cakes. Yeah, like a peanut butter chocolate cheesecake.
Oh.
And if we're talking pies, a blueberry pie.
AA Ron Triathlon just put cheesecake on there. So now we got to get Mom back involved in this, because there's a difference between New York cheesecake and Italian cheesecake. Which do you prefer?
New York cheesecake. Yeah, I want like the thick cheesecake where like the thick crust underneath everything. Yeah.
Yeah, where it could bend.
I was just in Spain, and it was super cool country, but like I missed the American portion sizes. So yeah, give me the New York cheesecake.
That's right.
A big slab of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So what's your favorite meal when it comes to post-race or post-workout? What are you recovering with?
After an Ironman, whatever I can get down, and it's like rolling the dice. Whether it's pretty unique feeling to be both nauseous and starving at the same time. So yeah, usually a pizza if we're talking pizzas already.
Fantastic. Are you an Oreo guy?
Yeah, but they kind of got ruined for me after a training camp with my buddies Jackson Laundry and Taylor Reed, where they both just bought like so many Oreos, and I feel like that was half of our diet for the weekend. So I'm still on like a bit of an Oreo detox right now.
What's your go-to cookie then? What are you grabbing as a cookie?
Oh, there's a bakery near my house that does like big chunky chocolate cookies that are just like criminally expensive, but so good.
Like, is it topped with like a little bit of sea salt?
That kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly. You can't go wrong with that. Big chocolate chunks and some sea salt. It's like heaven in a snack. So when you're out there running, are you listening to a podcast? Are you listening to music or nothing at all?
So I have rules around this. No music ever outside, period. I can't race with music. I think it's a crutch. But I love music, and it's a huge part of my life. So when I'm inside, anything goes with music. Usually not podcasts, though, always music.
Awesome. Genre type of music?
Oh man, I'm just all over the place. I know everyone says that, but like I don't know. Like, when I was growing up, my dad was like a classical guitar player. Then I played piano in a jazz band for a while, and lately I've been. Oh yeah, Spotify's wrap up told me that my genre last year was like vapor soul or something like that. I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool to tell people.
You said you're a book guy. What's your favorite book, and what book are you currently reading, or would you recommend people to read?
So I just read the sequel to Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. It's called The Testament. Not quite as good as The Handmaid's Tale, but just in general, like the entire genre of like post-apocalyptic, dystopic, social commentary kind of books, those are my absolute favorite. And yeah, that one is definitely up there as well. For the nerd in me, really likes some sci-fi, and The Three Body Problem was amazing. It's this incredible trilogy. There's like 3 lengthy books. It's an undertaking, but man, that was so mind-bending.
That's awesome. So where are you racing next? Where's the next place we'll see you? Have you finalized the next place? I know you said your season's a little up in the air, but
Yeah, so next one, probably 70.3 Mont Tremblant. If not, I certainly planning to defend my title at Ironman Lake Placid.
awesome. There was one question I have to ask you before I let you go. Somebody asked this question and they said, do you regret racing Kona, or was it something that you enjoyed?
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. I was so miserable when I was there, and I regret the one time that I raced it. And let me explain why, though. Like, I do want to go back there. It's my plan, one of my big focuses of the year for next year when the men's race is back in Kona in 2024. I was there for all of the wrong reasons, none of my own personal reasons. And I kind of got found out when I was there. And then to boot, I had a mechanical during the race. And so I was just a disaster. I didn't even finish the race. Could have got back on the course and kept going after spending, 10 or 20 minutes on the side of the road. But I was so cooked at that point, physically, psychologically. I just didn't want to be there at all.
Awesome. Thank you. What's an event?
So I regret it, but I'll be back.
What's an event you haven't done that you would most love to do? And it doesn't have to be Ironman or triathlon. It could be anything.
I've never been to a gay pride in my entire life. Every single time there's been like Toronto or Montreal gay pride, the local ones, I've been racing. So I feel like I have to do that. I know you're probably thinking athletic events, but like I feel like that's a moment that I missed up till now. If we're talking racing, I mean, it's a popular answer among triathletes, but I really want to try an ultra endurance trail race at some point. There's like kind of a morbid curiosity.
Come on over, man. It's a great world over here. I'm sure you've seen Heather Jackson make the move from.
She's crushing it. Yeah.
She is crushing it in the ultra trail scene. So definitely make the move, and it's awesome because you get the power hike, and you have a buffet as you're walking through the woods. It's fantastic.
So I've never actually walked a step of a triathlon other than peeing once. So I'm not sure if I'm emotionally prepared to accept that walking is part of my race plan for any event. How does that feel?
It's put it in from the very beginning. Power hiking, we'll call them European cheater sticks. Get your trekking poles out and enjoy it, man. It's like a whole nother world.
Okay. All right.
Cody, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We'd love to have you on in the future. Keep talking, because I don't think I've laughed this much in a conversation. And maybe we'll get Mom on here and we'll just make it a cooking show instead.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate what you're doing for representation in the sport.
I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Cody. Have a great night. Thanks, everybody. Bye.